Yura, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer alive. Please forgive me for everything. I wasn't a very good father to you, and I ran away when you needed me most.
This letter, it's not so much a farewell letter as it is a confession, a posthumous one, to be sure. You see, when your mother and my beautiful wife died in that car accident, I closed myself off. For a long time, I couldn't understand or even accept the fact that she was gone. Of course, I had you. For an infinitely long time, while I lived, worked, and loved, I had you, my blood, the continuation of Elena in every sense and manifestation. I just closed myself off, idiot. I closed myself off so much that I went to live far away in Siberia. I became a local forester, or, as they like to call me, a huntsman. I began to protect animals and vegetation in the local forest park reserve. The work, in fact, is not dusty. Very interesting, calm. And she would have been like that, if not for what has recently started to happen. Listen, Yura, promise me, posthumously, please. Promise that you will not look for anyone and take revenge. It is not worth it. Live your life happily. Leave your old man where he deserves to be. Otherwise, I will not forgive myself there, being in heaven, if they exist, of course, that with all these letters I only awakened in you your vengeful warrior spirit, which you got from your mother. The point is that in the forest, someone started doing occult practices. When I say occult, I mean exactly what I mean. At first, it was just circles and symbols on stones in the forest. These damn Satanists, even in the dead of night, managed to find places in my forest where I rarely went. They left their messages there. To whom, why, for what purpose, only God knows. I repeat, do not try to look for them. They are not people. More precisely, they are, but deep in their souls, they are dark pagans. Everything that comes to your mind is about them. As a huntsman, I dedicated myself to catching them. It took me a year to get even a little closer to the truth. By God, I should have asked the church for help. Why do I write this? Because kind words and grandfather's tozik can achieve little against a horde of fanatics. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I still couldn't understand the symbols. No matter how hard I tried, to look for similar ones in Yandex images, everything came to one conclusion. It was something dangerous and unknown. In addition, if the first weeks it was just red paint, then a little later the symbols began to be drawn using animal blood. Now, do you understand the scale of what was happening? I began to understand it then, too. But my human pride did not allow me to report what was happening. I wanted to curry favor with myself, to challenge myself that I was still capable of something, that I could and was ready to confront such evil. Yura, please don't repeat my mistakes. Forgive your stupid old man and heed his advice. Never, never be afraid to ask for help. Otherwise, you can simply end up where I am now. In my house, surrounded by hordes of creatures unknown to me. Fortunately, the day before, I managed to buy salt from an Adig shaman against spirits and evil spirits. God, I hope you don't think all this is the ravings of a madman. Everything written in this email is true, Yura. Even if I ran a little ahead in it. Forgive me for writing it so chaotically. So, blood was used. Near their improvised temples, I found corpses of hares, birds, and various other gophers, of which there are always a ton in the forest. Interestingly, they were all killed with a bow. These smart guys obviously knew about my presence, but did not intend to get close to me. Either they were scared by my toes, loaded with Soviet shot, or they had not yet thought of killing a person. You know, the energy of the temples was bad. I crossed myself every time I found something new. But I didn't just leave them. I had a sensible idea. To make notes on the temples I found on my phone's mobile map. Using gasoline and matches, I burned all this stuff and read a prayer that I came up with myself. Oh, spirits of the forest, please let go of the frailty of this world. Do not seek revenge. Do not seek the truth. Go where you should go. And I, your humble servant, will make sure that you are not attached to this forest. That's how it sounds. When you say it in your voice, you believe in it better and stronger. Without pretense. This year in general gave me the understanding that what you believe in is what protects. I can say that I was convinced that no matter what you believe in, it has the power to come true. Take those damn Satanists, for example. They clearly believed in everything they did. Each sacrifice was made with a specific intention. Each symbol was drawn with a specific purpose. I don't have to go far, because I also began to use the power of my faith and my convictions to fight them and the evil that they decided to release. At this point, you'll probably think that I've gone completely crazy. But no, that's not true. No matter what horror happened to me, no matter what I saw, not one of these curses shook my mind, you can be sure of that. The damned scratching. I hear them again. These creatures. They continue to scratch, knock on the windows and howl. I am still very lucky that there is light in my house. That my house is a stronghold of light. All these symbols, Yura. They weren't just caricatures. It all had its own meaning. Every sign, every letter in a language unknown to me, every squiggle. All of this was part of a huge systemic plan, but I realized it too late. Forgive me, son. Forgive me for everything. I couldn't cope, neither with my grief nor with saving our world. I never saw people who sacrificed animals, but I always felt that they were somewhere nearby, that they were close. It was as if they were mocking me all this time, playing on my frayed nerves, but they never made even eye contact with me. Creatures, cowards and scoundrels. They even found and killed the fox dear to my heart. Her name was simple and short, Lisusha. I don't know if they did it on purpose or if it just happened that way. But if only you knew, Yura, how painful it was for me to see her skinned carcass. How terrible it was to feel at yet another temple, which was sprinkled with her blood. And what a relief I felt when I burned everything to the ground there, releasing her spirit into the other world. Anyway, I couldn't tell anyone what was happening. Except for my shaman friend, no one believed me. Temples? Satanists? Sacrifices? The local mayor's office laughed openly in my face and didn't even think about allocating additional funds or people for the search. You know, I've come to the conclusion that these Satanists aren't just a bunch of idiotic teenagers. They're serious adults who know exactly what they want and what's at stake. Plus, they clearly had someone in the local government. Someone who doesn't care about money and who wouldn't mind turning a blind eye to what's going on. By order of the secret forces. I hope that someone will achieve justice and be able to punish all these bastards. If it were up to me, I would hang them all in the town square so that every resident and villager would know who sold their soul to the devil himself. I would have tried to deal with this issue myself, but there was no time. Even now there is none, when they set evil spirits on me, with which I have absolutely no idea how to fight. These monsters, they seem to be alive and not alive at the same time, as if a person who had just been buried in the ground was dug up and then immediately ordered to pursue a dark target. Their skin is gray, and their paws have sharp claws. These can not only kill but disembowel. I tried to fight them. God knows I tried. If only I had managed to get to my shaman friend. He probably knows exactly how and what could be done. But I didn't have time, Yura, do you understand? I didn't have time. On another day of searching for new temples, I came across one very huge one. It was already getting on for the night, but I couldn't pass by. Yura, it was a whole clearing among mighty trees. Crosses were stuck into the ground and animals were tied to each of them. Some of the animals were alive and twitching weakly, bleeding to death. Some, to their happiness and my relief, had already given up the ghost. But the scale... Oh, Yura, the scale was truly terrifying. 32 crosses, 32 beasts, 32 innocent souls. My heart, like the guardian of the forest, was torn apart. My soul was filled with anger and sorrow. Thoughts were flying through my head. Find, kill, punish, burn alive. How else can it be, Yura? Tell me. How? When these inhumans did this to innocent animals, it took me about an hour to get rid of half the crosses. I said a prayer over each one. I burned each body and each cross, believing that I was doing the right thing. Everything would have been fine, but evil had awakened. It literally rose from the dead. I don't know who was buried in this place and why. But these creatures who moved on all fours crawled out of their graves one after another. Each one looked at me with such inhuman hatred and hunger that I had no choice but to get into my SUV and drive to my forester's house. One of the monsters almost dragged me to my grave as I hurriedly opened the car door. Then I grabbed my shotgun from behind my back and fired a double-barreled round of buckshot into her. Did I kill her? Did she die? I never found out because my mind was filled with terror and I stomped on the gas pedal with all my might and headed straight for my house. Having reached the house, I immediately began to barricade the doors. I was haunted by a strong feeling that I had simply fallen into a trap. Thus, from a hunter, I turned into a prey. In addition, I did not know how long the barrier of dried rowan, which I had already mentioned earlier, would last. And would it help me at all against otherworldly creatures? I waited for an answer for 10 long minutes, having managed to barricade the windows and the main door to the house. Luckily, it was made of stone, almost a real fortress, if not for the flimsy wooden door, which I had been too lazy to replace with a steel one all this time. That same if only. I know for sure that I won't be saved. There's very little pellets left. There are almost no supplies to hold a long siege until the morning. I've found myself in the most disadvantageous situation, due to my own stupidity and carelessness. I simply have nowhere to expect help from. Forgive me for everything, Yura. Don't look for me. Don't take revenge. Take care of yourself. I love you. Your old man. It was just such a rambling letter that I received from my father a few days ago, Mr. Strange. It immediately excited me, for I believed it the moment I read it. My old man, God rest his soul, was always stingy with his emotions. That's why I didn't follow him down the path he chose for himself. Still, I couldn't forgive the bastards for forcing my father to chase not only Satanists, but also run from the spawn of hell instead of a quiet retirement. As soon as I got all my affairs in order here in civilian life, I immediately set out to find my father and punish those guilty of his death. An internet search yielded the result I expected. An article describing the brutal death of a lone forester in his guardhouse was found quite quickly. The body was mutilated and disemboweled. The local authorities wrote it off as an accident, a clash between nature and man. According to them, a bear broke into the house and killed the gamekeeper. Then came the posthumous honors, the gratitude. In short, they were simply throwing dust in the eyes. But I knew that everything was not as clear as it wanted to seem. Anyway, I took the first plane to the Republic of Adygea. The road was long and difficult, but I was driven by a thirst for revenge and a desire to find out the truth about everything that had happened. I wanted retribution for my father. For some reason, I was confident inside that everything would work out, that I would be able to do what I had to. Upon arrival, I quickly located the reserve where my father worked. For security reasons, I will not reveal its exact location. As further events have shown, fanatics of the Nihilist cult can be found where you least expect them. I do not want to expose you or myself to unnecessary danger. They settled me in the same house where my father lived. There was no one queuing up to take his place, so I quickly settled in. No one asked me any questions and no one dug. No one cared who I was or what I was, which of course only played into my hands. By the way, I was very lucky that the police did not conduct a thorough search. Knowing my father's penchant for various secret places in furniture, walls, or other places, I quickly discovered his hiding places. He clearly wanted people to know the truth about what was happening. Only he could not trust it to anyone. No one except me, even posthumously. The thing is that the forester's house is a one-story building with several rooms. Father was right. The house is made of stone. In the basement of the house, I found a small tunnel. Having dug out what was there, I found a small suitcase. In it lay a bag with dried rowan berries, as well as maps and notes that my father had made during his lifetime. There were also photos of satanic drawings, a temple. I swear, just looking at them gave me goosebumps and a desire to run back to warm Moscow as quickly as possible, as well as advice on survival and tracking animals. Well, Mr. Strange, that was already some kind of start. Besides, the suitcase contained the coordinates of the Adig shaman that my father had mentioned. On the day of my arrival, I took a service car and headed to the shaman. I arrived at a small wooden house. On its porch, I was met by a skinny old man who was sitting in a rocking chair and smoking a pipe. When he saw me, instead of greeting me, he said something I didn't expect to hear. "Greetings, son of a huntsman. It is you I have been waiting for all this time. Do you know me?" "Of course, Mikhail always talked about you when he came here. You came for revenge, right?" "That's right, shaman. Besides,
I want to know the real truth. Oh, a long and difficult path awaits you, my boy. A long and difficult path. Still, I am sure that you will finish what your father started. The shaman invited me into the house. He poured me some delicious green tea and treated me to berries and nuts. Then he began to tell me a story. The forest is very vast. You can't cope alone. Our enemies are counting on this. Our enemies? Of course. After all, they are my enemies too. The locals don't want to believe me, thinking that I've gone crazy. It's the age of technology, after all. And yet, I think you felt it yourself. What exactly? Well, of course. Can't you feel the thick air here in the forest? The animals are also almost invisible. They are all trying to run away from here as quickly as possible. Yes, that's true. I noticed that. There. The cult of Nihilus is gradually approaching its goal. It is already a forest, and not a forest anymore. With each passing day, it ceases to be our ally. A little more, and this place will become a source of evil. The dead will replace the living. And the living, those who sold their souls, will try to subjugate the ruins of our once great human civilization, he said. At first I thought the old man had gone crazy, or that his pipe contained some substances that were definitely not good for your health. But with each sentence he said, the shaman sounded more and more convincing. The cult has existed for a long time. It appeared when Hitler's SS men were actively studying local folklore and trying to find power in the other world. Fortunately, our soldiers were actively nipping at their heels, and they never found anything. But the seeds of evil had already sprouted in some particularly religious people. Until the internet and computers came into our lives, these people sat quietly, below the grass. But as soon as they learned modern things, they actively began to invite into their ranks all those who could be useful to them. And what people came? It's a sect at its core. They did. And they are still going. Some come for money, selling their souls. Some truly believe in what is happening. But no matter what motives people pursue, they are all members of a cult. And that means they represent evil. How do you know all this? Call me Wolf. My ancestors lived and hunted in this forest, taking only what was absolutely necessary, but never giving in to bloodlust. And so it would have continued until my son decided to cross the line and join the ranks of those who sold their souls. For him it was a kind of game. The thirst for excitement led him to a place from which there is no return. And you didn't try to get him back? I asked the wolf. I felt sincerely sorry for this old man who was forced to live out his days in almost complete solitude. I tried, of course. But is it easy to convince a young and hot heart of the wrongness of the actions being taken? So the cult of Nihilus gained a sharp and calculating mind into its ranks and, one might say, became stronger. And my father, Mikhail was brave as a lion and far-sighted as a falcon. When I told him all this for the first time, he believed me, and I understand him. The temples and sacrifices will not let me lie that the darkness thickens over our forest every day. So what do these people want? To awaken evil. I have already told you, my boy. And in your father they saw, if not a threat, then an obstacle. He alone tried to cleanse the energy of the forest, burning the temples and escorting the spirits of animals to where they were supposed to go in due time. Did you teach him this? I asked again, after a long time, taking a sip of my cold tea. Somewhere my advice was useful. Somewhere he came up with the methods himself. The main thing here is to believe, Yura. Faith. It can give or, on the contrary, take away a lot. Nihilus believes that sacrifices and their strange symbols can awaken evil. Their recent act of force, which turned into a death trap for your father, is proof of that. Your father believed the opposite. He believed in the power of kind prayers and dedication to one's cause. The creatures they awakened, you know what they were, right? Not exactly. In his dying letter, my father only briefly mentioned their nature. These are yaoguai, or in other words, werebeasts. Nihilus somehow, apparently having consulted the city archives, discovered an ancient pet cemetery. As far as I remember, they buried dogs and cats there. although some managed to bury babies and children up to 10 years old. I dread to imagine what kind of hellish mixture rose from the dead then. Yes, they scared my father very much, and later they killed him. My right hand trembled with fear. I intercepted it with my left, but the trembling did not stop. It is right that you are afraid. Fear is our ally, but it can also become our enemy. Yaoguai do not like sunlight. If your father had a little more time, he would be alive now. Unfortunately, life turned out differently. Alas, I cannot suggest an exact way to fight them. Here you will have to look for the answers yourself. But what I definitely want to tell you is, please, do not stop looking for the temples and cleansing them. Otherwise, we will lose the fight for the forest. And if we lose, then no one will be able to stop those who sold their souls. After what was said, the old man fell silent for a long time, staring somewhere out the window and continuing to smoke his pipe. I also thought about everything that was said. Everything that Wolf said, although it sounded like nonsense, but the death of my father was serious evidence to the contrary. And since I am here, it means that I must continue the fight. That was how we said goodbye to the wolf. I got into my UAZ and returned home. I sprinkled dried rowan berries around the perimeter of the house and closed the door and windows tightly. The house was lit by a lamp, and I was preparing dinner. Music from my phone was playing in the background, and I was lost in my thoughts. Despite the fact that I expected unexpected guests to show up on the first night, no one came. I slept peacefully on the whole, only occasionally waking up from the random creaking of the wooden floorboards. If at first I tried to sleep with the light off, I still left the night light next to the bed plugged into the socket. In the morning I cleaned the house, checked the food and water supply. Unfortunately, it was small, so I got back into the service car and went to the city to buy groceries. The locals were friendly and talkative. The gamekeeper's uniform immediately told them that I was new to the post. Some expressed sympathy for my dead father, not knowing that I was his son. Some cursed the local officials who closed the investigation too quickly. Be that as it may, the general mood was good and cloudless. Somehow it was hard to believe that among ordinary citizens, I could accidentally meet one of the cult members. That is why I was on guard and tried to notice every strange detail. After some time, I bought everything I needed: matches, 5-liter bottles of water, canned goods, dry goods, and semi-finished products, as well as condensed milk and sweets, which I could use to pamper myself and also treat my nerves. The city didn't have the suffocating, ominous atmosphere that the forest had. So I enjoyed every free minute and inhaled the scent of freedom and serenity. Unfortunately, I had to go back. On the way home, I met an eccentric old man. An interesting conversation started with him. "Ah, the son of the huntsman. The wolf told me about you. If you share your food, I'll give you a box of shot for your father's gun." "And who are you exactly?" I asked the gray-haired old man. He was dressed in rags, but turned out to be an intelligent and well-mannered person. "You can just call me old man. That's what everyone calls me. So, what's the deal?" There was nothing to do. I didn't ask about the cartridges. Considering what I was about to face, I wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I paid him off with a couple of cans of condensed milk and gave him the same amount of stewed meat. Returning to my house, the first thing I did was to weld a new door for myself. I had experience. After all, it was not for nothing that I had completed the relevant education. And it was a pity to leave my father's welding machine idle. By 16 o'clock, I had finished and installed a good steel door. I also installed a sliding window so that I wouldn't have to stand and stare at the peephole, but could normally look at ill-wishers. Since I had plenty of time, I went to the temples marked and cleared by my father. Fortunately, they were empty, and I did not notice anything bad. The UAZ felt good in the forest. Fortunately, the trees were not so thick and it was easy to drive. This could have continued further if I had not reached a pile of fallen logs that blocked the road. Armed with a shotgun loaded with shot, as well as bottles of holy water and my own silver cross that hung around my neck, I went on reconnaissance. The further I walked along the path, the stronger the feeling of something evil. A little later I found a lonely tree, only there were several rabbits hanging upside down on it. Not tempting fate, and not wanting to repeat the mistakes of my father, I sprinkled the cursed tree with holy water and set it on fire. While it burned, I repeated my father's words, "O spirits of the forest, please let go of the frailty of this world. Do not seek revenge, do not seek the truth. Go where you should go, and I, your humble servant, will make sure that you are not attached to this forest." Even though I had some doubts about the correctness of what was happening until now, as soon as the tree caught fire and the last word ended, the bad energy began to dissipate. It even became easier to breathe. And this is already part of the success, as I believe. Without thinking twice, I returned to the car and returned home. When I arrived there, I immediately marked on the map the new cursed place that I had just cleared. Even though it had been a short time since my father's death, I'm sure the cult hadn't wasted any time. They had a head start that, unfortunately, I didn't have. The next day I made a plan to fortify the house. In the basement where I found my father's hiding place, I noticed several steel bars. These were the ones I planned to use to strengthen the windows so I could sleep more peacefully. The second night passed as calmly as the first. Even the creaking of the floorboards did not bother me. But the morning didn't start out well. Not only was it cloudy outside, but I also found a strange note. Behind the perimeter of dried rowan trees lay a bird's beak. Inside was a letter, which I unfolded and deliberately didn't touch the beak, and read as follows. "Get out, huntsman. Your predecessor died a coward's death. Now it's your turn. We give you until sunset. If you don't listen, further events will show that you yourself have chosen the road to hell." Well, at least they didn't know I was the huntsman's son. I hoped so. Still, I couldn't help but feel like someone was constantly watching me. I walked around the house, checking the dried rowan. It was very lucky that no one had broken the barrier. This gave me hope that those who had sold their souls could not step in, much less break the barrier. So, I had some advantages on my side as well. Well, that's the little story I wanted to tell you, Mr. Strange. And you know what? Let the members of Nihilus know that I am the son of the Jaeger Mikhail. Let them know that I will get to them all and punish them for what they have done and what has not yet happened. I'm not going to hide, for he who always runs away will never find peace in his heart and soul. Wait for my next letter. In general, wait. The fight for light and peace continues. Believe me, I will do everything in my power to finish what my father started, even if I have to shed human blood again. The question remains open. Human, right?